I don't want to put this all on Quinn Ewers, but there were many opportunities to where they had the perfect play design and perfect route concept drawn up, and he just couldn't get the ball where it needed to get to, or he made some late decisions, didn't have enough zip on the football.
I watch Arch Manning, and I got to give this kid credit. He would start for virtually every other college team in America.
At one point this season, Quinn Ewers was seen as the best quarterback in the country and was being mentioned amongst Shedeur Sanders as the potential #1 overall pick or the first quarterback taken in the 2025 NFL draft. But now all of a sudden, that's no longer the case. Earlier this season, Texas was ranked #1 in the nation. But why? Was it because of Quinn Ewers? Was it because of Steve Sarkisian? Or is it because the man Quinn Ewers is holding back stepped up and played like the best quarterback in the nation? Texas has a huge decision to make, and it seems like they've already made their decision, which is forcing Quinn Ewers' hand. But what's Quinn Ewers' future going to look like, and what's his next play? Before we get to the content, we are less than 16,000 subscribers away from 1 million subscribers, so if you want to help us get to that goal, make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications. And now that we get all of that out of the way, so we're pretty much being given free money again. You remember on Thanksgiving when Tyreek Hill only needed 1 receiving yard, and then we just need to make 1 correct prediction to 3x our money? And we hit on Thanksgiving, and now all Patrick Mahomes needs is 1 passing yard versus the Cleveland Browns. So we only need to make 1 prediction to 3x our money again. To take advantage of this opportunity, click the link in the description down below, or use my promo code Mikerophone when you sign up for Prize Picks to get a free $50 when you make a play of $5 or more. Now, unfortunately, I already 3x'd my money. Yeah, I paired Patrick Mahomes with Josh Allen throwing for over 242 passing yards versus the LA Rams, and could you blame me? The Rams are one of the worst passing defenses in the entire league, and I was certain this was gonna hit. Now, I posted this pick onto my Instagram story, so if you followed me on Instagram, you would have seen that pick, but if you didn't, don't worry. I still make plenty of picks on a daily basis for you to pair the Patrick Mahomes free square with another one of my favorite picks for this upcoming weekend, and I have a pretty good track record of hitting whenever we have a free square. So make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone when you sign up for Prize Picks to get a free $50 when you make a play of $5 or more, and hurry up and sign up before they move the lines, because we want to take advantage of the odds we have. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Coming into the 2024 college football season, Texas was facing a brand new challenge. They had dominated the Big 12 the year prior and made the college football playoff, barely losing to Washington, but now they were in the dominant SEC conference, and there's a lot of questions about whether or not they'd be able to survive, and they answered that question relatively quickly. They blew out teams like Baylor, BYU, and TCU a year prior in the Big 12, but how would they fare against SEC programs like Texas A&M, Florida, and Vanderbilt? Well,
kind of tickles me is all these people asking these questions about how Texas always ran the conference they were in. Well, they're not going to run the SEC. There's a whole lot of arrogant people in a lot of places in the SEC, so forget all about that.
Contrary to Nick Saban's opinion, Texas did in fact run the SEC, going 7-1 during in-conference games, finishing with the best in-conference record among the rest of the SEC. In fact, even when Quinn Ewers suffered an abdominal injury against UTSA, star quarterback Arch Manning stepped up in his absence and beat the SEC's very own Mississippi State by completing an absurd 84% of his passes for over 320 yards, a pair of touchdowns, and an additional rushing touchdown. So there's this huge question of whether or not the Texas Longhorns should continue with Arch Manning, or if they should revert back to their original starter, Quinn Ewers. And when Quinn Ewers returned, they answered that question, but fans were wondering whether or not Texas's offense was going to be as prolific. And believe it or not, Texas's offense remained one of the best in the country, with the third-year starting quarterback even being projected to be the first quarterback taken in the upcoming 2025 NFL Draft. They beat number 18 ranked Oklahoma in their Red River rivalry game by over 30 points, and then they beat number 25 ranked Vanderbilt, who was coming off of an upset victory over Alabama. They even knocked off number 20 ranked Texas A&M to advance to the SEC championship game in their very first season of play in the SEC. But there was one problem. Texas had one blemish on their record, a 15-point loss to Georgia back in October, where Quinn Ewers played terribly, completing just 58% of his passes for 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. So Quinn Ewers was beginning starting to develop this reputation of a player that was able to dominate against lesser teams, but he always stumbled when the lights were the brightest. But luckily for Quinn Ewers, Texas had a chance to avenge the very loss that knocked them out of the #1 ranking. And this game was a make or break game for Quinn Ewers. Going into the SEC championship game, Texas was favored to win despite the fact that a few weeks prior against Kentucky, Quinn Ewers once again sustained a major injury, this time spraining his ankle. Most normal people would say, oh well, Quinn Ewers is hurt and his numbers tanked since his injury, so let's play our superstar dual threat second-year quarterback Arch Manning instead. Especially because in Texas's first loss to Georgia, they only lost because they couldn't handle the pass rush, and Quinn Ewers was about as mobile as the Statue of Liberty. So to counteract that, you would think that Steve Sarkisian would decide to start Arch Manning and throw a wild card at Georgia, but Sark thought completely differently and instead opted to start Quinn Ewers, who is suffering from an injury that, by the way, makes him even more of a statue. So because of that, the SEC championship went about as well as you would have expected. On the first drive of the game, Ewers tossed this terrible interception. Right when you think there was a chance for him to redeem himself, things would get much worse. Texas had every opportunity to win this game. Carson Beck got hurt. Georgia's punter even got hurt, but Quinn Ewers still couldn't get it done. Sure, it hurts that Texas kicker Burt Auburn missed 2 key field goals, but it hurts even more that Quinn Ewers tossed what should have been a game-ending interception on what also should have been Texas's final drive. Now, obviously, Georgia's backup quarterback Gunnar Stockton would hand the ball right back to Texas on this interception, but this would just hurt Quinn Ewers' case even more. Texas still could not get the ball into the end zone, and all they could do was force overtime. And in overtime, Quinn Ewers did absolutely nothing to quiet the critics, as he simply could not get the ball into the end zone, and after a field goal, Georgia would punch the ball in to win the SEC championship.
I don't want to put this all on Quinn Ewers, but there were many opportunities to where they had the perfect play design and perfect route concept drawn up, and he just couldn't get the ball where it needed to get to, or he made some late decisions, didn't have enough zip on the football, and just was not able to make the timely throws when he needed to the most. Look, I had tweeted during the game, why don't they put Arch Manning in here, at least for a series or so, and kind of like give this defensive front from Georgia something else to think about?
Now, obviously, Texas still would make the college football playoff, but even so, fans are demanding Steve Sarkisian start Arch Manning over Quinn Ewers, and they have a very valid point. Since his high ankle sprain, Ewers has looked like a completely different player. He's completing just 57% of his passes and has more interceptions than touchdowns. This is horrible, but his play on the field isn't even the worst part about this entire situation, and now it's starting to affect next season and possibly the future of their second-year star quarterback. This brings us to the recent rumors surrounding Quinn Ewers, as Ewers still has one final season of eligibility, and he might use that final season of eligibility to stay in college football for the upcoming 2025 season. Now, this is insane because this is going against the last 2 years of Texas's plan. Steve Sarkisian's plan was always to have Quinn Ewers play 3 years and then declare for the NFL draft. We know this because of Arch Manning's willingness to ride the bench and trust the process. The plan was absolutely perfect. The 2025 NFL draft's quarterback talent wasn't nearly as deep as the 2024 NFL draft's quarterback talent, which was the whole reason why Quinn Ewers didn't declare for the 2024 draft to begin with. I mean, would you rather compete with the likes of Shedeur Sanders and Carson Beck? And yes, I understand that recently Jalen Milroe and Cameron Ward have also entered the mix, but before then, Quinn Ewers had to make the decision of either trying to compete against the likes of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, both of which have won Heisman trophies, and then Drake May on top of Michael Penix and Bo Nix, versus trying to compete against just Shedeur Sanders and Carson Beck. Obviously, the 2025 NFL draft class was significantly less competitive than 2024.
How do you keep Arch Manning happy, content, positive?
Yeah, you know, the one thing with Arch that has been, and I think I really credit his family, his mom and his dad, you know, his grandpa, obviously his uncles. I think they understand the process. We're in this world now of instant gratification, right? Whether it's social media or the 5-star recruit comes in and starts right away. But if you really look back at the history of Eli and Peyton, they didn't start their freshman year. It took time as they developed. I think the one thing that the Mannings understand is when it's your time to play, that they want to play really well.
But here's the problem with what Sark just said. Manning has developed. He's spent 2 years riding the bench. And if Quinn Ewers does decide to stay in college football, it's likely that they'll lose one of their star quarterbacks. Now, you might be wondering, why would Quinn Ewers want to stay for one more season if this year's quarterback class is significantly weaker? And And look, for all you know, this could be a great quarterback class, but just based off of how scouts and analysts are feeling about the QBs this year doesn't have a surefire number 1 overall pick at the quarterback position. It's not like the year where Trevor Lawrence entered the NFL draft, or Kyler Murray, or Andrew Luck, or Caleb Williams. This year, it's more of a toss-up. And there are 2 major reasons why Quinn Ewers would elect to do this. One is he just really wants to win a championship. Or 2, he realizes that his draft stock has taken a huge fall since the beginning of the season, and he wants to play one more season to raise it back up, which is the whole reason why he forego the 2024 NFL draft for the 2025 NFL draft. And in my opinion, the second reason is the more likely one, due to the fact that this news came out before the college football playoff. But still, I don't agree with Ewers on this one. For example, take a look at Michael Penix last year. The guy played the national championship with a similar ankle injury to Ewers, and sure, he didn't look that great out there. But scouts recognized that and still determined that he was a top 10 worthy player, as evidenced by the fact that the Atlanta Falcons were very, very aggressive and drafted him 8th overall. Now, I'm not saying that Ewers is a top 10 worthy pick, but I do believe scouts will recognize that he's been playing through an injury and won't put too much stock into his recent performances. As for the consequences of staying in college, there are 3 ways this works out for Quinn and Arch. The first option is the least likely in my opinion. Quinn stays at Texas for 1 more year, and Arch decides to ride the bench for 1 more season before he starts as a junior in 2026. This is the least likely option simply because Sark has basically already promised Arch that he will start next season. The second option is that Quinn Ewers starts at Texas for 1 more season, but Arch decides to transfer elsewhere. And the third and most likely option in my opinion is Arch gets the starting job like Sark promised, and Quinn Ewers has to play elsewhere. Because why would Texas risk the next 3 seasons of elite quarterback play for 1 more season of Quinn Ewers? Now, like I already said, I think Ewers is potentially making the wrong decision if this rumor is true. Whether Texas wins or loses the national championship, Ewers is still likely to be a first-round pick based on his 2023 and early 2024 tape. But if Ewers does decide to play 1 more season, it's likely either him or Arch transfers, and the number 1 speculated landing spot is the University of North Carolina under new head coach Bill Belichick. This is the perfect landing spot for any transferring quarterback, let alone a member of the Manning family. And look, even before Bill Belichick decided to go to North Carolina, UNC has a recent history of highly drafted quarterbacks, with Mitch Trubisky and Drake May both being drafted in the top 3. But just imagine how much a quarterback could develop if they had Bill Belichick teaching them how to play the position. Now, I understand people are going to be looking at this and saying,
Mike, look at what Bill Belichick did to Mac Jones. Tom Brady carried him throughout his entire career.
but go back to 2008 when Tom Brady tore his ACL in the first game of the season. Matt Castle, who Belichick had been developing for years, came in and led the Patriots to 11 wins. Bill Belichick is capable of developing young QBs. I wouldn't be shocked if Ewers or Manning went there and eventually became a future number 1 overall pick. Truthfully though, I think this is fairly unlikely. I do think in the end that Texas will make a deep run in the playoffs, and I do think they have a real chance to win it all. But I think eventually Ewers will understand his value as a prospect and declare for the NFL draft. But if he doesn't, boy, I'm telling you, the college football landscape would completely shift, and it all lies on the decision of one man in Austin, Texas. Do you think Quinn Ewers should declare for the NFL draft? Where do you think he'll be drafted if so? Or do you think he'll play 1 more season in college? And if so, for what team? Now, if you didn't know, Bill Belichick has agreed to become the head coach of North Carolina. We have a completely separate video on that. I'll leave it in the end screen. I'll meet you guys there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.